Your cat may be adding years to your life, and almost nobody is talking about it. Not your doctor, not your cardiologist, not the wellness industry selling you supplements and step counters. The answer to one of the most underrated longevity questions in aging research has been sleeping on your couch this whole time. And the science behind why is genuinely some of the most surprising evidence I've come across in years of covering cat behavior and biology. Here's what makes this different from the usual pets are good for you conversation. This isn't about feeling less stressed. This isn't about having company. What researchers have now documented across cardiovascular studies, microbiome research, bone density science, and cognitive aging data is a specific, measurable biological cascade that cat ownership triggers in the human body. And the effect is strongest by a significant margin in people over 50. You probably didn't get your cat for your health. You got it because it was cute, or because it needed you, or because, let's be honest, it simply decided you were acceptable. But somewhere in the background, quietly, without either of you agreeing to it, a process started. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what that process is. If you already love your cat, you're about to love them for completely different reasons.
Let's start with the number that rewrote how researchers think about cats and cardiovascular health. In a study tracking over 4,000 adults across nearly 2 decades, one of the longest-running mortality studies of its kind, cat owners showed a 40% lower risk of dying from a heart attack than people who had never owned one. Not 5%, not a modest statistical blip that gets rounded down in the abstract, 40%, on one of the leading causes of death in people over 50. The researchers published it, the data held up, and then almost nothing happened. No headlines, no public health campaigns, no doctor walking into an appointment and saying, "Before we talk about your medication, tell me about your home life." The finding didn't fit a billable category, so it drifted quietly into the literature while the supplement industry kept growing. But it didn't disappear. A systematic review and meta-analysis, pooling data from hundreds of thousands of pet owners across multiple countries, found the cardiovascular benefits were real, consistent, and reproducible across different populations and age groups. Pet ownership and lifespan appear to be genuinely, measurably linked, and not in a soft correlation might mean nothing way, in a way that researchers kept finding every time they looked. Then, someone asked a sharper question, not just whether cat ownership helped, but who it helped most, and why the effect seemed to intensify with age. The answer to the first part stopped researchers cold. The strongest protective effect wasn't in young adults, it wasn't in middle age, it was concentrated, significantly, specifically, in people over 50, which means if you're watching this, the science is talking directly to you. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because the 40% figure, that's just the beginning.
Now, the obvious explanation for all of this is stress relief. You pet your cat, your nervous system calms down, your blood pressure dips. That's real, it's documented, and we're going to get to it. But here's the problem with stopping there. If stress relief were the whole story, any soft object would produce the same result: a weighted blanket, a stress ball, a particularly cooperative houseplant. And yet nobody is publishing studies about houseplants reducing heart attack risk by 40%. So something else is happening, something that is specific to cats, and specific above all to living with one past the age of 50. It's not one thing, it's a cascade. And what makes this cascade unusual is that different parts of it are triggered in completely different ways. Some of it activates the moment you make physical contact with your cat. Some of it happens passively, just from sharing a space. Some of it is happening through your gut. Some of it is happening through your nervous system in ways researchers are only now beginning to map properly. And then there's the one that genuinely surprised me when I first came across the research. It involves a sound, one your cat makes every single day. A sound so familiar that most owners have completely stopped hearing it, which means most owners have no idea that their body is responding to it in ways that have measurable, documented effects on bone density, tissue repair, and the autonomic nervous system. That sound has a frequency, and that frequency sits inside a range that medical researchers have spent decades trying to replicate with expensive clinical equipment. Your cat does it for free, on your lap, without being asked. We're going to start there, because once you understand what that sound is actually doing inside your body, every other mechanism in this video is going to land differently. The purring effect. Here's something that will permanently change how you hear your cat. Your cat purrs at a frequency between 25 and 50 hertz. That's not trivia. That is the exact frequency range that medical researchers have spent decades trying to harness, because vibration in that specific window triggers measurable healing responses in the human body. We're talking bone density recovery, tissue repair, muscle regeneration. There's now an FDA-cleared wearable device built entirely around delivering vibration at this frequency to people with low bone density and osteoporosis. The clinical research behind it shows it can slow bone loss and support muscle retention in ways that are genuinely difficult to achieve through exercise alone, especially after 50, when bone density becomes one of the most consequential things quietly happening inside your body without you feeling it. Your cat has been delivering this naturally, daily, for free, on your lap. Scientists have a name for it: vibroacoustic stimulation. You've probably just been calling it your cat being happy. Is your cat curing osteoporosis? No, but 20 minutes a day of that specific low-frequency vibration every day, adding up across months and years, the research says that is not nothing, not even close to nothing. Mechanism 2. The cortisol effect. Every time you stroke your cat, a small but measurable shift happens inside your body. Your bonding hormone rises, your stress hormone falls. That exchange takes less than a minute to begin, and it happens whether you reach for your cat or your cat reaches for you. Here's why that matters specifically after 50. Your primary stress hormone, cortisol, when it stays elevated day after day, year after year, becomes one of the most quietly destructive forces in the aging body. It suppresses your immune system, it disrupts your sleep, it raises your blood pressure, it speeds up cellular aging, and it creates a low-grade inflammatory environment inside your body that underlies nearly every major disease that becomes more common as we get older. The damage isn't dramatic, it's slow, it compounds, and most people don't connect it to stress at all, because by the time the effects show up, the cause feels like it was years ago, because it was. What your cat provides is a daily, reliable, effortless reset of that cycle, not once a week, not when you remember to meditate, every single day, on your cat's schedule, which means it actually happens. That consistency is what researchers keep pointing to. For stress reduction in older adults, showing up every day matters more than doing something intense occasionally. Your cat, completely by accident, has been doing exactly what the science recommends. Mechanism 3. The purpose and connection effect. Here's something researchers keep finding in healthy aging studies. The people who age best usually have 3 things in common, and your cat may be providing all 3. 3 of the most powerful forces in healthy aging aren't physical at all. They're structural, they're social, and they're quietly provided every single day by an animal that weighs about 10 pounds and has strong opinions about breakfast timing. Start with routine. Cats are the most schedule-rigid creatures most people will ever live with. Same feeding time, same spots, same sequence, and a loud, pointed complaint if anything deviates. And if you live with one, their routine quietly becomes your routine, not by negotiation, by cat. After retirement, That matters more than most people expect. Consistent daily structure turns out to be one of the most underrated predictors of how well people age. Not a specific activity, just the existence of a rhythm, a reason to get up at a specific time, something that orients the day around a need that isn't your own. When that structure disappears, and for many people over 50, it does, gradually and without fanfare, the effects on mental sharpness, sleep quality, and physical health are real and documented. Your cat prevents that from happening without accommodating your excuses. But routine is only the beginning of what's happening here.
Researchers have found that chronic loneliness, the kind that quietly settles in after children leave, after retirement, after loss, carries health consequences comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It raises inflammation in the body, disrupts sleep, weakens immune response, and significantly elevates cardiovascular risk. This isn't a metaphor. These are measurable biological effects that show up in blood work. And this is where cats do something specific that most people never think to credit them for. A longitudinal study tracking pet ownership and cognitive decline found that older adults living alone who owned pets showed significantly slower mental deterioration over time than those who didn't. The protection was strongest in people living completely alone, no partner, no regular visitors, exactly the people at highest risk. Your cat cannot replace human connection, but it provides something that matters at a biological level: daily physical contact, a consistent social presence, and, the part that surprises people most, it makes you needed. Being needed is not a sentimental idea. It is a real physiological state that changes how your body handles stress, keeps your brain engaged, and influences how quickly you age. Which brings us to the deepest layer of this. Researchers studying longevity keep arriving at the same finding across blue zone populations, centenarian studies, and aging datasets from completely different cultures. The people who live longest tend to have something that depends on them, something that needs them, something that would notice if they were gone. People with a strong sense of purpose live longer, experience less cognitive decline, recover from illness faster, and show lower rates of depression and heart disease, even after accounting for every other lifestyle factor. A cat is a small thing, but it is a living thing with needs, preferences, and a face that knows your footsteps from anyone else's. Every single day, it gives you structure, connection, and a reason to show up. Not metaphorically, literally, for a specific creature that has decided you are the thing it requires. Routine, connection, purpose. 3 of the most powerful drivers of healthy aging, delivered daily without effort by the animal currently watching you from across the room. And here's what makes the next mechanism even more surprising, because it turns out the effects don't stop at your mind or your heart. They go somewhere most people would never think to look.
Mechanism 4, the microbiome effect. This is the one that surprised me most, and I want to be specific about why. Because this is not just pets are good for your gut in a vague wellness way. The research goes somewhere more interesting. Studies comparing the gut bacteria of cat owners versus non-owners found that people who live with cats carry measurably different microbial communities in their digestive systems. Cat owners tend to have greater diversity of gut bacteria, and that diversity is now one of the most consistently replicated markers of immune resilience, lower inflammation, and better long-term health outcomes. Think of it like this: a diverse gut is a resilient gut. And after 50, that resilience becomes one of the most important biological assets you can have. But here's where it goes further. Research suggests ongoing exposure to the microbes cats bring into a home may actually train your immune system over time, teaching it to respond in a more measured, less inflammatory way. Your immune system, in other words, learned something from living with your cat, and it appears to have applied that lesson in ways that show up in your health decades later. There's also emerging research connecting gut bacteria composition to kidney stone risk, suggesting the microbiome effects of living with a cat may reach further into the body than anyone initially expected. Your gut, your immune system, and your cat have apparently been having a long conversation. You just weren't in the room for it. Stop for a second, because I want to make sure something just landed properly. We've just covered 4 distinct biological mechanisms that cut across bone vibration, stress hormones, daily structure, loneliness protection, sense of purpose, gut immunity. And not one of them requires you to change anything about your life. No new habit, no supplement, no gym. These are things that have already been happening every day in the home you already live in, with the cat you already have. That's not a small thing. That's actually a fairly remarkable thing. Now, which one surprised you most? Tell me in the comments, and be specific, because people land very differently on these 6. Some people find the purring frequency one genuinely hard to believe, and then go look it up and come back even more surprised. Others say the loneliness data is the one that hit hardest. A few people always mention the microbiome one, because the idea that your cat has been quietly shaping your immune system for years is the kind of thing you can't unknow once you know it. Drop it below. I read them. Now, here's what's coming in the next few minutes. And I'm going to be honest with you, because I think you deserve a complete picture, not just the flattering one. Everything we've covered is real, and the evidence behind it is solid, but there are 2 things about cat ownership after 50 that most videos like this one quietly skip over because they complicate the story. One of them is a physical risk that the CDC has been tracking for years and that gets almost no attention in pet health content. The other is a parasite, a real one, that lives in cat litter, and that recent research out of Colorado has linked to something specific and concerning in older adults. We're going to cover both, completely, because the goal here isn't to make you feel good about your cat, it's to make sure you actually know what you're dealing with. And then, right after that, there's one final finding I've saved for last. It's specifically about people who live alone, and if that's you, it may be the most directly relevant piece of research in this entire video. Stay with me.
Let's talk about the part most videos skip. Because if this video gave you 6 reasons cats are good for you and then quietly ended, it would be doing you a disservice. You came here for the real picture. Here it is. Falls first, and this is not a footnote. The CDC has tracked thousands of fall-related injuries every year that involve pets, cats specifically. And after 50, a fall is not the minor inconvenience it might have been at 35. It is a potential fracture, a potential hospitalization, a potential turning point in your independence. If your cat moves unpredictably underfoot, on stairs, in low light, in the kitchen at 6 a.m., that is worth taking seriously. It is worth arranging your home around. Night lights, cleared pathways, awareness of where your cat tends to appear. Simple adjustments, non-negotiable ones. Now the parasite. Toxoplasma gondii is a microscopic parasite that cats can carry and shed through their litter. For most healthy adults, it causes no symptoms. You may have been exposed without ever knowing it. But research out of the University of Colorado found something worth paying attention to. Chronic toxoplasma infection was associated with increased markers of frailty in older adults. Separately, other researchers have found links between long-term toxoplasma exposure and inflammation patterns associated with accelerated aging. This does not mean your cat is a health hazard. It means litter box hygiene is not optional, especially after 50. Gloves, hand washing, regular cleaning. If you're immunocompromised, consider having someone else handle the litter entirely. These are not dramatic precautions, they are just the complete version of cat ownership. And cat scratch disease, caused by a bacteria called Bartonella, transmitted through scratches or bites, is more common than most cat owners realize and worth knowing about.
particularly if you notice unusual swelling near a scratch site or prolonged fatigue after an injury from your cat. It's treatable, but only if you know to look for it. Those are the risks, all of them, handled. Now, before we close, I promised you something specific. I said there was one finding saved for last, one that's directly for people who live alone. Here it is. A longitudinal study tracking older adults over multiple years found that people living completely alone who owned pets showed significantly slower cognitive decline than those living alone without one. Not marginally slower, significantly. The researchers controlled for age, health status, social activity, and lifestyle. The pet ownership effect held up independently. If you live alone and you have a cat, that finding is not general wellness advice. It is specifically, directly about you. Your cat may not just be keeping you company, it may be keeping your mind sharp in ways that nothing else in your current life is replicating. That is worth knowing and worth not taking for granted. Now, think back to where we started. You probably didn't get your cat for your health. You got it because it was cute, or because it needed you, or because it chose you, the way cats do. But somewhere in the background, without either of you agreeing to it, something started. A frequency your bones respond to, a hormone exchange that happens every time you reach out to touch it, a daily rhythm it imposes on your life, whether you planned for one or not. A presence that tells your immune system, your stress response, and your aging brain that you are not alone and that you are needed. Most people over 50 are looking for the answer to aging well in the next supplement, the next study, the next thing they haven't tried yet. Some of it has been sitting on your couch the whole time, watching you, judging your food choices, and apparently, quietly, without making a fuss about it, keeping you alive. If you made it this far, thank you for staying with this one. It was a lot, intentionally, because this is the kind of content we make. Not surface level, not cats are cute and good for your mood. The actual science, the complete picture, the things that change how you think about something you already have in your life. If that's what you're looking for, hit subscribe. We cover cat behavior, cat biology, and the surprisingly deep ways cats affect the people who live with them. New video every week, no filler. And if this one genuinely changed how you see your cat, share it with someone who has one, with someone who's been thinking about getting one, with someone who needs a reason to feel good about the creature currently occupying their favorite chair. They deserve to know what's been going on. And your cat, for what it's worth, already knew all of this. They just weren't telling.